10 minutes late, I guess, maybe more than that, about 7 or 8 maybe. Had technical difficulties for those who are watching. Board members, I want to give you a copy of the sheet of different things I'm going to share with you tonight. Take one from Mr. Burgess, if you will. You saw this earlier today, but same thing, nothing's changed. All right, just want to talk through some things, been some questions the last couple weeks, and want to just kind of update you on where we are on several things. Our board meetings are pretty packed with information. So first thing I want to talk to you about is teacher displacement process. And I'm just going to give you a little bit of history here. Right at the end of January 2009, I went to a position. And as I went, the recession was full gear. It was wide open. And as I looked at my new job, I made a decision that I thought we could keep from cutting teachers and sending teachers home unemployed. I thought we had enough openings in our school system to move teachers around, call it displacement. That was the word I used. And so we started down that path, and we were successful with it. We were successful with it for 5 years. So we came here, everything's pretty relative in education. People think that the system I was in, which was the biggest in the state, 16th biggest in the country, had all this money. We didn't have any more money than we have here. It's all relative, the number of kids you got. Just like Charlotte Mecklenburg does it. So we started this process in spring of 14, and we've displaced teachers. There's a lot of different ideas out there about what it is, and I just want to make sure we're going through this, and you, maybe it's been a long time, and maybe I should have updated you before, gone back and reviewed it, but this whole process is aimed at keeping our teachers with us. You cannot keep the same number of teaching positions at a school if your enrollment goes down. Likewise, you can't have the same number of teachers every year if your enrollment goes up. We would hear that as well. So what we do is the teacher allotment process starts every year in February, with usually the finance officer, myself, and the HR person. And we go and we look at what the state has given us. We're always begging the state for what resources they're going to give us. We're always trying to decide, trying to figure out how many teacher positions they're going to give us. And that's where we go from our allotments. We determine each school's allotment, and Andrea meets, she and Sean Hildreth meet with principals individually and give them their allotment. She sends them away to make a staffing plan. And the staffing plan, they have to look at their school, and they have to say, how many social studies teachers do I need next year? How many science teachers do I need? That's a high school issue. And as I mentioned in an email the other week, elementary and middle are driven primarily by enrollment. High school is driven by enrollment and kids' requests and pre-registration. So as a high school principal, I used to tell my community, you got to take pre-registration serious. Because you can't come up, I can't come up and change a French teacher to a science teacher 2 weeks before school starts. That's not how it works. So if the kids pre-register for needing this many French teachers, or Spanish teachers, or math teachers, I can't just switch them because everybody changes their idea come August. So, Andrea asked them to do a staffing plan. We've done this all along. They put the teachers in their staffing plan, and they put the teachers that are going to be displaced. So, as I mentioned the other day, you 1 year might have, as a high school principal, need 4 social studies teachers. Next year you need 3. You may have to change that position to a math. You may need more math teachers, or you may not need more math teachers. You may be fitting in what you have based on your allotment. The principals give us who's being displaced and who they displace. If Mr. Cook and I, if one of us has to be displaced, we're going to look at who has the most consecutive years of service as a 100% teacher in the Randolph County school system. If we did most consecutive years of school, the logic is the same people will be being displaced from schools every year. If I got displaced to Southwest High last year and then I was in the group being compared, I'm probably going to get displaced again. And I'm just going to keep getting displaced around the county. So, we do that, and I remind the principals that, and in their staffing plan, we also see where they have vacancies. They don't have anybody for certain spots. They say they need 5 associated teacher positions. They don't have 5 people. So Andrea captures a list of vacancies, and she captures a list of who is being displaced. So there was, I think, 27 teachers were displaced this year. And what we start working through it, where can we put these individuals so they stay employed with us? Now, some people talk about this and they get all confused and they start using RIF. RIF, which is reduction in force, is not the same thing. If we do a reduction in force, it's going to take a lot longer. And here we go. Once we reduction in force, those people aren't going to be employed with us anymore. So they're going to be unemployed. We cut them loose from the school system. And that's not what we want to do. We want to keep our teachers. Now, every now and then, we have a principal that says, well, I don't know why I have to take this teacher, or why I have to displace this teacher because years of service and all. Well, we have known quantities. These people are employees. They've been being evaluated by our principals all this time. So you're getting a known quantity, or a known person. We know something about them because they've been with us. They're displaced too. They've been at one of our schools and they've been through our evaluation process. So I would assume as a principal, if I'm getting somebody from another school that's displaced to me, they've passed through the evaluation process, okay, wouldn't you, Andre? So we ask the principals not to say anything until we get ready. And I always, before we start telling people they're displaced, I always send you guys an email and I'm giving you the history. I mean, I think the year we went full into the K-3 class size rule when it changed, I think that was the year we displaced 37 people, 17, 18 year. Or maybe we started down that route. That was not the complete, I think 21, 22 when we were completely in the new K-3 class size. So once we tell the principals, you can go and start telling your teachers which ones are going to be displaced. And Andrea's working with them, but we have to have the principals' help. Because if we wait, we take 27 people, and we bring them all down here, we're not going to get it done. So the process, where we are right now, we have 5 people left. I'm not going to identify those 5. We have spots for them. We've got 5 left, and as I said in your email on April 12th, I think it was, I've asked Andrea to get it done by May 15th. Because the other problem is we don't move quick enough, then the vacancies we do have after we've placed everybody, we don't get them posted, and we got to bring people in. We don't get a chance to go get people. We wait. The reduction in force process probably would take longer. I know it would take longer. It's a different comparison. Just so you know, if you do reduction in force, your board policy and the board policy that our staff uses, we have to determine why we're doing a reduction in force, whether it be reorganization, decline in enrollment, or financial exigency. And then when we get to comparing whether Mr. Cook or I lose our jobs, we have to go through a comparison of work performance and evaluation ratings, area of licensure, program enrollment, whatever program I'm teaching in, service and extra duty positions, length of service, and level of degree. With higher, when you say length of service, if somebody's got more time at RCC or RCSS, they get more credit for length of service. But those 6 items are not priority order. We have to come up with how we're going to globally look at these people, and that's a big process. And that pulls a lot of work in on principals and a lot of work on school staffs. So the displacement process, I know there's different interpretations of it, but the interpretation, the basic, simple interpretation of it was, back in January of 2009, I felt like the school system I was in, we had enough spots open that we could keep from losing teachers who were with us. Now, do I think everybody's totally excited about where they go? I mean, people love their schools. Getting displaced is not just, everybody's not waiting to be displaced. Andrea works, I've heard the conversations. She's talking to the principal about we're trying to find places so we don't make their drive longer, but anybody listening, we can't guarantee that always. It gets hard to get all of these positions placed. There's certain position types that are more difficult. But I think one of the things I answered the other day to a question was, is it all based on enrollment? Well, allotments are based on enrollment, but the displacement process, it's driven a lot by enrollment in elementary and middle, but high school was driven by enrollment and areas of teaching. Like I'll give you one, there was a high school, my first year, 13, 14, we had a high school with 3 art teachers. 3 art teachers. I had a high school with 2,600 kids. This high school was maybe 1,000. It was one of my last years when I finally could make enough to put a second art teacher at that school. We had a high school with 3 art teachers and nowhere near enough kids in that school to support the need for 3 art teachers. So I went to that principal and I said, you gotta do something because 2 of those art teaching positions got to change something else. So changed 1 to social studies, and I changed 1 to EC. But if the art teacher couldn't, one of those 2 art teaching positions got changed, if the person in them couldn't do those roles because of certification, they had to be displaced. This business is not about spreading kids across teachers. It's about spreading teachers across kids. And you can't just leave a school that doesn't qualify for, let's just say, 30 teacher positions 1 year. The next year, their enrollment only qualifies for 27. You can't leave the 30 there because there's somebody in need of those 3 positions. Because those 3 positions come out of the overall allotment from the state. Okay, and so I don't know, I mean, I get it. People aren't happy when they get moved. I understand that. And this won't be the last time, but I'm very proud that here we are on May 12th, on May 9th, when Andre left my office, we were down to 5 people that need to be notified where they were going. And Andre already had the spots. So that means, probably May 16th, we're telling our principals, whatever you've got left in your staffing plan post, go get the people, go get them. If we wait till middle of June, or get into June too far, the likelihood of teachers that out there gets slimmer. So this is not a formal, the formal process. People walk around and say, I really, if you've ever been involved in a formal reduction in force process, it becomes bothersome because of what that process entails. And I ran about 13 of those in my last job. And the hurt when you tell somebody they're not with you anymore, that's hurtful if you've got anything to you. It's hard. So a lot of people walk around and say, well, it's a reduction in force. It's not a reduction in force. People are employed by the school board. I mean, in school, Board of Education and slash school system. So their job is not with individual schools. I get it. Just like I did when I started teaching in 1993. I chose to go to school. I got a chance to go to a school. I had 2 school choices, and I went to the one I wanted the most. But I also know about the second month of my teaching career, I was this close to getting displaced because numbers didn't come into that school like it's supposed to, or like it was projected. So I remember that vividly. So if another question was asked, if Andre and Sean work on this and they send Ms. Farlow to school X from school Y, and after she gets sent, somebody resigns from school, because remember, resignation, you resign when you retire. It's resign or retire, you're still resigning both times. Andre, they give the person the chance to go back. And we've had a lot of cases where the person's already been displaced, and they said, no, I'm already settled in. And we can't do that all the way right up at school because, so, you know, Tammy's the principal, we've already given her a teacher, so she's not been looking for anybody for that spot. So you can't get so far because now you just tied Tammy's hands. But we have offered pretty about middle summer at least, probably, if not.
Transfer deadline.
Yeah, transfer deadline, okay. She'll move it back as far as transfer deadline, what's it, July this year? July 20 this year?
But let me double check.
So there's the piece. And we've had people say, I don't want to go back. I've already gotten adjusted, I've already made peace with it. And so we tried to work with people on this.
Saturday, that's July 22nd.
It'll be July 22nd this year. So that question was asked. And, you know, I made a note last night going through some stuff this weekend. The positions people are moved to are needed in those schools, staffing plans, the new school staffing plan they're going to. So, you know, we really don't have the luxury of saying, well, we'll just absorb this. You know what, I think the last time I sent you all an email, we were down to 21. And at that point, if we absorbed 21 and let them stay, that meant we still had to give those schools that had the opening that position because they needed by their student numbers. What we would have been doing is letting those 21 stay at a place that they weren't needed by student numbers. And those 21 positions would have cost us, best guess, what Marty and I figured, because this year the average cost of teacher position, salary and benefits is $77,077. So with the stuff out there, we figure easily a position average cost will be $80,000 for next year. And my first year, I think the average teacher position was $45,000. So there has been work on that with benefits and salary. But that would equate to 21 positions would equate to us essentially absorbing $1,680,000. So it also would equate to us having 21 more positions than we were allotted by the state. So it's kind of, and I get it, I deal with this all the time. This is where my mind goes. My mind stays here. You know, I tell people all the time as a principal, you're running two schools from January to the end of the year. The one you're in, and then you're looking at next year. And that's what we're doing in the school system here. A lot of work goes on before it ever hits the eyes of the principals with their allotments. And so there's individual, I see the individual meetings. And this allotment doesn't cover, I mentioned this in our time with the legislators. We get a special allotment for EC. Well, it's 13 teacher positions deficient. So we have to pull 13 teacher positions over from regular ADM allotment. We get a special allotment for ESL. It's 12 positions deficient, so we have to pull 12 positions over. There's 25 before we ever get started. Okay? We've now, CTE, we had 7.5 positions we were deficient on. We've now pulled that down this year and just said, David, we can only give you 3.5 this year. So you start adding those up. That's a position in school right there. But there's 3 program areas that have specific allotments. We can't use any of that allotment on ADM, but we can add from ADM into that, and that's where we start, that's where things start working back from. Before we give schools allotments, we have to make sure we have pulled anything special out of there for those areas. So, just looking, I'll continue to get you an email, because I always want you to know that we're getting ready to tell people that they're moving. I always want you to know that before we do, because I don't anticipate it always being just exciting or make people happy. A couple of years ago, we moved a teacher from, I think it was Tabernacle to Hopewell, and somebody was really, and I thought, well, what I knew about that teacher was they were already in that community, and I thought, I said, this one won't be a difficult one. It wasn't. The teacher was great. The teacher was great where she was, but we've had some other situations where maybe we've tried to keep them where they are this far from home or closer. Sometimes we haven't been able to. You know, you think about some of the areas that don't have, but one teacher in areas. Social studies you have more in high school. Math, you have more in high school than maybe a middle school, and of course elementary, you've got the core teachers that are most time teaching all areas. Sometimes they do where they're changing classes. They do that in some of the 4th and 5th grades. But in elementary, one year you might need 3 first grade teachers, and next year you might need 5. So you got to go look and see where that cohort of kids that only needed 3 is now in 2nd grade. So you might have to pull a 2nd grade teacher down. So the scheduling of schools is quite intriguing to me, always has been. And quite frankly, I was very involved with it as principal, both the middle school and high school principal. I was very involved with it because I wanted to make the most out of all the resources we received, so. Any questions about teacher displacement?
So, the process the principal goes through in the displays, we know it's the license, and what else?
Well, they're looking at where they're teaching and do they need, if they've got to compare, I look at it as universes, okay? I may not need 5, let's just go to high school, I may not need 5 associates. So I'm gonna compare them all into one.
Say, okay, like, so
They wouldn't be
they
in
got
there.
3 social studies teachers.
Mhm.
Next year, they ain't gonna need but 2.
Mhm.
What's the whole process to determine who's they gonna be that one?
They're gonna compare those 3 and the one with the least number of consecutive years with the school system is gonna be the one that's placed.
Like you said, it's tough, man, you be losing every year. You be
That's
losing
one
every year.
Well, it might not be the last one hired, because they might have been hired, they may have been hired for years at another school before they even came to the school. That's why it's not the school, it's the system, because otherwise we'd be displacing the same person all the
Yeah.
time. So if I got displaced one year in my area, say I go to Brown High School, and it's my first year there, I got displaced last year, and I'm a science teacher, and all of a sudden, Brown High has 5 science teachers, now they only need 4 next year. I'm gonna be the one if it's my school, because I've only got 1 year. And we've got to kind of, we've pushed that, and I get it, people get confused sometimes, and they get caught up in school and all, whether it's school or system, but Andrea works through it with them, she and Sean work.
I think that's where some of them, what I've heard, you know, they don't realize that. They think, well, I ain't being here but 1 year, 2 years, so why I'm getting bumped. I don't think a lot of them realize it's how many years they've been in the school system. They think it's just how long they've been at that school.
But your question sort of, you're kind of asking if you got bumped and you went to Randleman, and next year you're the last one to come to Randleman, and they fall off, you get bumped, you go again.
Not
So that don't
necessarily.
work that way though, right?
It's not how-
But I believe a lot of them thinks that.
Yeah.
It could work that way, but
It
it
don't.
may not.
And every now and then, Andrea, remember when we first started, when you first got in this role, and it happened with previous HR people too, every now and then somebody will say, but I worked here 5 years and I took off and I came back.
That 5 years.
We don't count those 5 years because we never totally knew you were coming back, even though you might have said it, but that gets into a whole nother myriad of things, and so that's why we go with consecutive years. Every now and then there may be a little nuance, but that's where we hold for 99% of the time.
And it's consecutive years in a teaching.
Yeah, it's not, hey, I did this for TA and then I became a teacher, it's teaching.
And all these people that's being displaced understand that they have the opportunity, if it arises, to come back to the school they're leaving from.
Their principal should be telling them. When I call the principal, I kind of coach them on what to say to that person and how to tell them. Because the bottom line to me is I want that person to know, we care about you and we're gonna take care of you. This is not us saying goodbye, good luck. This is us saying, unfortunately, there's not a place for you at this school for next year, but we are going to take care of you and we are gonna work with you, we're gonna find a place for you that is gonna be a good fit for you. That's what we're trying to do.
And to your point, 3 or 4 teachers resigned, I think I sent y'all this, May 4. That previous week, 3 or 4 teachers have resigned, which allowed some displaced teachers to go back where they were. That's how we
I
got
think
21.
that really affects the K-3 group probably more than anybody else, simply because of enrollment. Nobody gets their kid, they don't get enrolled until the week before school starts. And the numbers tend to change a lot there.
Well, and see, that's a whole nother animal.
I know.
Because that law, we have to be at a out of position. But now, what you don't, a couple of years ago, I remember it was July, and I remember it's clearly Southwest High. It wasn't a couple of years ago, it was about 8 or 9 years ago now. And we called Sean, and we said, Sean, your numbers aren't coming in like they're projected. What do you have you hadn't filled? Ironically, he had 2 positions, I think it was a science social studies, he would remember, and we were able to pull them back. Otherwise, we were able to put, they weren't filled. And we pulled them back because they're probably gonna be used somewhere else before the summer was over. And so But the K-3 issue is a legal issue. I have to sign an affidavit, twice a year, and have for, ever since that came in, because there was all that, discussion about, I have to sign an affidavit and send it to the state superintendent twice a year that we're in compliance in K-3. And, you know, that is what it is. But after the Meredith and Andrea, they look at that time of year, and it's right after day 40, and then it's also right in somewhere around February, if I remember right. I have it in my notes, because I'm not gonna forget that. So, that was a big bone of contention back when that new K-3 class size rule came out. That's really hurt us. That's why, that has really hurt us, and I go back to, I never heard anybody complain about the class size of 21. But it's really, really hurts. And I'm not saying it's not hard in kindergarten with 21, or first grade, or second grade, or third grade, but I am saying when they went to 18, 16, 17, 17, 18 for kindergarten, 16 for first grade, 17, 17, second, third grade, I am telling you, one of the last comments I made to a legislator that summer was, what is your class size idea for 412? And I thought the person had hung up because I didn't hear anything for about 3 minutes, because there wasn't anything. And that's, you know, I had a parent on the phone back 2 or 3 months ago, and she was upset about class sizes in the up grade levels. Well, it's a product of that K-3 class size. And Ms. Farlow, I know you were a kindergarten teacher. For the life of me, I've yet to figure out why kindergarten went 16, why it went 18, 16, 17, 17. No one can explain that one either. And I'm not discrediting anybody else in the other 3 grade levels. But if you told me one of them was gonna be 16, I would have guessed it was kindergarten every day of the week. So I don't know why we think the biggest one can be kindergarten, then we go to 16 for first grade. I don't get that, but I wasn't involved in that discussion. So they didn't want my input, I guess, so.
The other thing, Dr. Gay, I just want to also mention is that whenever these conversations are taking place, there are oftentimes, I wouldn't say every time by any stretch of the imagination, but there are oftentimes when that teacher will give us a list of here are the schools that I'm really interested in. If I've got to go somewhere, can you place me here? And sometimes we can work with them and honor that. Sometimes we can't. But if they do reach out and say, hey, I'd like this school, this school, this school, if we make it work, we do.
So I was recently in class, reading, but now we're in class. And my heart went like this, after what I heard walking in the hall. You could tell the class was awesome. You could tell the teacher was awesome. I remembered her from meeting collegiate or kids at university level, but we do a lot of that. And I mean, the kids were just great. Walked down the hall and I said, had a good year, yeah. It's being displaced. So it's not, I mean, it's not an easy conversation. And the idea, the best years, y'all don't remember this, but there was a year for 22-23 school year, we displaced nobody. But I'll tell you, that was probably because during, COVID was 1920, we just ended that year. 2021, what was last year, 23, 24? So 22, 23, and 21, 22, we gave every school an extra position out of the ESSER money. Remember that? And that's probably why that year was 0 and the next year was 4. And, you know, there's been, you know, people have asked that. We made that transition last spring, because when we told them that those positions were only for those 2 years, you know, that was all it was. And so we made that transition last year, but that's probably why it was 0 and 4. So, anything else from the displacement process?
I mean, people were just going to realize that charter schools and online schools and everything, enrollment's going down, displacement's going to be a.
It has not started moving forward. You're exactly, it's right in there.
Mhm.
You know. All right, if there's nothing else, I'll move to the next topic. Demolition of Braxton Craven School. Just so you know where we are, JL's been working very hard on this. We've worked with the architect to for design, environmental permitting. We've obtained a survey contractor, waiting on the attorneys to finish some of the paperwork. Once approved, we'll put the RFP out, and we think that project will cost or take about 6 to 8 months for completing once it starts. But the problem there is going to be, once we get somebody, it takes a request for proposal. Once we get somebody, how quick can they schedule? And at this point, you know, we tried to get through the fall last year so everybody wasn't looking at it being torn down. But at this point, we'll have to take whatever we get whenever the time comes, whatever deadline or whatever window of time they can do it. So waiting on a couple things, and then we should hopefully be rounding that out pretty soon. Any questions on that? And then I'm assuming the board still wants to just sit on that land, keep that land in case we need it for a ninth grade center. I don't think we'll be big enough for anything more, but we may need it. Trinity High School is 85% full right now.
We don't need to sell any land in the Trinity area,
Nope.
period.
I don't think so either. All right, next topic, student assignment study. Student assignment study is underway. We're working with ORED. It's the Institute for Transportation, Research, and Education. Don't ask me what OR, and then it's capital O, capital R, capital E, and then lowercase d. But it's through NC State University. We work with two guys, Thomas Dudley and the research associate Brian Godfrey. The contract was $27,500. Contract's 4 to 6 months. We signed it on February 27. I would tell you it's probably going to be the end of the summer before that work is done. Let me tell you what they're doing. They pulled a file already from TIMS, which is our Transportation Information Management System and / Power School. It's connected with Power School for it's a student file. They've already scheduled interviews, and I'm going to tell you where they've already been. They're going to city and county planners, so some municipalities, we're talking to them, but some places we're talking to the county because there's not a municipality. But looking for areas of growth, looking for where developments are coming and scheduled, and where building permits have been filed and or approved, which means that y'all know future housing. So when we ask about the developments, we're asking how many housing units are going in this development, and then what type of housing units going into that development, such as is it a single family home, is it a townhouse, is it a trailer park, is it apartments? And so those are the things we're asking, and just so you know so far, Dale and Seth and staff with ORED have already met with City of Asheboro, John Evans, City of Archdale, Jay Miller. City of Trinity is scheduled for, was Thursday, the 8th of May, 2 o'clock, I don't know who they met with. Met with Randolph County Government, May 8th, 3 o'clock. City of Ramlin, they have yet to schedule anything there. They're also waiting to schedule a Randolph Economic Development Corporation leadership, the Piedmont Triad Rural Planning Organization, which is looking at rural developments, rural roads, all that out in the rural areas of the county. And they're also have not scheduled their meeting with the Piedmont Triad Water Authority. And so those are coming. The goals of the interviews are to get planning information in terms of number of seats needed in our schools. So I read somewhere where someone was talking about this, and this has to be global. We're in it or we're not. That's my opinion. We're either in it or not. We can't, someone's asking, what's the school system doing with this? Well, we need to see. I believe, Mr. Cook, in your area, I believe that if we don't have a development showing that's going to fill up Wheatmore High School, which is 62% full, we're probably going to go to Highway 62 and start pulling people to Wheatmore. But we can't put so many more people on the campus of Trinity High School. So I believe there'll be, and so I say this, some of the results of this study are not going to be settling very, very positive for people. You know, what happens in Franklinville, which is 48% full, and Farmer 45%? Do we start pulling people from South Mont down there? And we know that Tabernacle is not full. We know that. What do we do there? But that's what we're going to learn from this study. Town of Ramsar, We hadn't scheduled that. Town of Liberty, we have scheduled for May 15 at 3 o'clock. So, just want you to know that the movement is out there. The people are on the ground. They are trying to get this information. They know how to get it. That's why it was important to go with a group, because they do this. This is what they've been doing. Actually, I ran into this group in 1998. When school systems, particularly where I grew up, didn't know where to go with developing, and they would have, you might, as one of the leaders in this group, way back when said, look out one year and it's a tobacco field, next year it's a tree park. We gotta be ready. And so, you know, I grew up, there was a lot of, we had to figure out where schools were gonna go, the leaders did, and so this group has been in action for a long time. Obviously, some of our urban areas, it's not been their issue of where do people come, it's where to put the schools. And how do we get our hands on the land before it goes to the roof? That's why I've said, you might have heard me say multiple times, equally important to this building project plan could be what's called land banking. You know, we might have to buy some land that we may not use for 5 years. We may have to, because you can't go back and know it's there when you need it.
I'm not gonna name any names or anything like that, but when this study comes back, I mean, they're gonna, I know, call it down the middle. We got some places that's, you know, yes, we got some places very high with enrollment. I get that, you know, we more than Artsdale Tree, but I also get we have places where it's very low. And, they could recommend some tough decisions down the road, and I mean, that we really have to look hard at, and I guess it would help us when you're looking hard at something for somebody to help, and us just sitting here saying, look, we gotta do this or we gotta do that. But I do think that's something we gotta be prepared with in the future, because, well, I don't think you can continue on some of the same roads we're going down.
One of the reasons why tonight was so important is we are accumulating some big issues that you guys are not gonna be able to deal with just once a month. There's no way. Like, I think there's probably gonna be some work sessions, which all we're gonna be able to talk about is the results of this study. If we're gonna get it right. Because we get one chance to figure out how to use farmer more. Or what are we gonna do? Because, you know, do I think Weedmore High School can fill up naturally based on what I've seen down Tabernacle Church Road? Possibly, but no one's told me what that is. They cleared all that land. So hopefully we'll find it out from this study. And I don't, you know, Dale didn't tell me what all they said in Archdale. But, I mean, what is the impact gonna be on Trinity Elementary from across the road? But if you ride down 62 from Braxton Craven towards the Sheets, there's a lot going on down there, and there's more. I just saw back behind there, there's the condos, and then,
You take a right on, what is that street there?
Right past John Lawrence, something's
Yeah,
big's
that's
getting ready to
gonna
happen
be
right
huge.
there.
John Lawrence.
that's that neighborhood, and then look
Yes.
over at Hopewell. I mean, I'm be curious what they tell us Hopewell, that whole
It'll
development.
be
I think
interesting.
there's a bunch of houses going there too.
Yeah, they cleared all that land. So, I hope that gives you a little bit of insight what's going on, and quite frankly, I got Dale working on this with these guys, because they don't need to be waiting on me. Now, Dale and I, you may be seeing on your calendar events, and you might have seen Seth and Dale, maybe, that, I'm just scheduled sometimes that he and I and Seth can update what's going on, what we're seeing, so we'll keep working at it, but there again, I think there's gonna have to be some work sessions that are gonna be some time to talk about it, and then think about it, and then where do we get the decisions? You know, and I believe some of these areas that haven't started clearing are gonna clear too. If what they say is gonna happen, it's gonna happen. So, any questions about student assignment study? I hope that gives a little bit of feedback on what's been going on. That started, and I'll remind you this, the county commissioners allotted $50,000 for this study, so there is a chance that we could get done with the summer 25 And we may have to go and extend this a little bit, I don't know, just seeing what we get between now and then. You know, but we'll talk as we get, 'cause we've got to balance a little bit of money of that as well. But if I remember right, Marty, it was $50,000 the county commissioners approved last June, right about this time last year. They approved $50,000 for that study, and they approved $500,000 for the demolition of Braxton Cradle.
Just thinking out loud, we get this study back, is there a possibility that we, let's say, I can say Farmer, because I know right now there's not a lot of growth going on down there. Could we take certain schools within the county and do open enrollment, just for those schools, to try to get the numbers up? I mean, it wouldn't be every school, but
I'm not gonna say what we can do, whatever the board would like to pursue, the problem.
that's just a thought.
Yeah, the big thing is, we're seeing a little bit of that right now at Uwharrie Ridge. We basically have open enrollment if you apply to go to Uwharrie Ridge. And I think if you start down that path, and I've heard some of you say this, and it's not, I'm not saying this is a negative. If you start down that path, you're gonna have a hook to pull. What is it, why would I go here versus here? And now we get into some programming issues again, and here we are, we're doing special programming here, and then we get into, if you start down there, you're almost like creating little magnet schools, which our board policy allows. And we never took it out just in case it ever got to that point. You know, what happens 20 years from now or 30 years from now, or maybe it will be taken out of the policy. But when you start down that with magnet schools, that gets real expensive. And I think, you know, so we'd have to, just know if we did open enrollment, I think you would have to, now, you know, at the high school level, we've had open enrollment, we've seen that places. Just to be quite candid, you wind up with a baseball school, a football school, and a basketball school. And I can tell you, a county that was, for years, that's how it was. So there's your hook, is the athletic program. And right now, we don't let people go, we don't do reassignment choices based on programs. We don't let somebody say, well, I want to be in Meadow, so I've got to go to Eastern, or I got to go to Randall. We don't do that because everybody has ag. We got agriculture, we got that. But you could also get in that mix of auto mechanics at Wheatmore and auto mechanics at Randall. We don't, you know, people, when we get those calls all the time, and hey, you know, we want to go here because this program's there. We don't do reassignments because programs. Because I can tell you what that sometimes leads to also, you know. So I don't know, Mr. Lanier, that's just a, I don't know that we, you know, open enrollment, the danger with open enrollment, I live that. Okay? The danger with an open enrollment is, we had that happen where I was for 1 year. And we had, and at some point, you had to cap schools. Because you couldn't let everybody want to go to high school X. And we had buses driving by 5 high schools by the end of the summer because kids enrolled and the seats were gone. And so we had, that was, decision was made, and we had buses riding by 5 high schools to get a kid. So now you're dealing with a lot of transportation issues too. We put 10,000 miles on buses a day, increase, I think it was. And so, you know, open enrollment's, I'm sure it has its positives and negatives, but we can always, we can look at it. But I'm not sure you won't create a problem with the underpopulated school and overloaded. I'm not sure you wouldn't.
What was the area you was talking about doing that though?
I was just talking about like using Farmer, for instance.
Okay.
And I wouldn't be in favor of it right now for high schools because it turns into an athletic draw, I mean. But as far as elementary schools, you know, you go up Hoover Hill Road, it's not much, certain areas of Hoover Hill Road, and I don't know where the line is, there's not any different Tabernacle than it is to Archdale or wherever they go up that way.
Yeah.
You know, and same way with Farmer, where I live, like I said, I'm I think 2/10 of a mile closer to Southmont than I am Farmer, but I can get to Farmer 5 minutes quicker because of the roads, and I can get to Southmont. You know, some of those in which we can address this with lines if we need to when this study comes back.
Yeah.
So,
That may help, that hopefully will help some
yeah.
with the lines. So. All right, any other questions about student assignment updates? So that is not costing us anything. Thank you to the commissioners for helping fund that. Like I say, I don't know what we may have to extend the contract. Some, or just depend on, that may be involving presentation of board and stuff like that. I doubt by the end of the summer we'll have everything collected, recommendations and presented to y'all. I doubt that.
I mean, you got to do this right.
Yeah.
You got to do it right every how long it takes. I mean, you just can't rush into this because you can create a bigger problem than what you already have if it's not done right. We already seen it had been done right in the past.
We end up right where we're at right now.
Well,
Yep.
we won't, but somebody after
Yeah.
us will be.
Back aside.
So the next item, do you have questions, Bruce? Next item is status of Liberty Elementary School property for new Liberty Elementary. All due diligence has been completed, all the environmental checks have been done, survey and special use permit, watershed buildable land percentage was approved by all that was approved by Town of Liberty. Whatever the Monday was, the last Monday in April, Dale went to their town council meeting and was involved in a presentation. They're working on the final closing of the land now. A test fit is being completed by the architect, meaning just kind of a schematic of what could fit on that land and what that might look like. It's kind of like, Marty, the best way I can describe test fit, and you dealt with all this before, was just a possibility of something that would fit on the land we have, within the buildable land. Like,
What it would look like on the project.
yeah, maybe not the exact design we use, but here's one that would fit. So Liberty, we're on hold. You know, I don't know where we go with Liberty. I don't know. You've heard my thoughts on that before. For New Liberty Elementary, it's a good spot. So soon we will have the land wrapped up. Any questions about that?
Is the Town of Liberty on track to be able to provide water, sewer, and all
I've
that?
heard nothing to say not, Mr. Lanier. I've not heard anything to say they're not.
Okay.
I think we would have heard something from that, meeting that there was a problem with that.
Well, I mean, with everything that's going on over there, I've not been too impressed with the Liberty side of it. Everything is is it
You're
Forest
not-
Oaks? Is that what, on the other side?
What's
Guilford
that?
County? Is that Forest Oaks on the other side of Toyota, Guilford County?
I
What
don't-
is that?
First Oaks.
It's Forest Oaks, yeah.
It is
That-
Forest
That's where everything's
That's
going
where
right
everything
now.
will go.
I
Probably.
rode I rode a Toyota about 3 weeks ago, and it's
Did I ever call you back?
Nope. All right, the land at Randall,
And the
the
coach will do
land for the Randall High School.
So, yes, let me ask you this on Liberty, or just kind of and I, no, I'm expecting you to even have an answer for it or anything, it's, you know, not your fault on this, but, even we close on land, I mean, realistically, what are we talking about as far as building a school there?
Well, I think that's the last part of tonight's discussion, because,
Yeah.
and I'll share with you what I know and what I don't know, which is a lot now.
Okay.
Okay, and so I,
What, that you don't know, you do?
that I don't know. A lot I don't know, so.
Well, I'm sure what I don't know here.
I'll close out on that, but I think the last item is gonna be a lot of conversation, but,
Did you say when the land was closed, as far as?
no, they haven't done the closing yet, they're arranging that now. But what I'm saying, Mr. Cutler, is that April 28 meeting, it's all kind of tied up in a bow now with the city, Town of Liberty, okay? Now they're scheduling the closing. They had to approve all that the other night, and Dale did that presentation. And then once that's done, depending on where we go next, is whether we, you know, in the design phase, what are we in? You know, the design phase is probably 6 to 9 months, I guess, and then you got bids and designing bids, and here we go. But we gotta, I think there's some decisions we've got to make, or you as a board, or present, and let y'all come up with some ideas. So the Randall High School property, The sales agreement's in place. The environmental phase 1 assessment has been scheduled and survey for all the due diligence work. And there has been a test fit done for that site as well, based on what we know going into the building, the amount of properties built. So there was the architect's already done a test fit, so we know there's at least something that will, design that will fit on that plan. So that's where we are at Randall. Any questions about that?
If we were to build a Randleman High School, what are we talking about, 70 to 80 million?
You know, Mr. Lanier, not to shock anybody listening, but I'm gonna be shocked if you could build. So remember, this county has done better than probably anybody I've ever seen. They built those 2 high schools for $40 million. Is that about right? Providence Grove,
was
Wheaton.
29, second one was 33.
They didn't even get the 40. I mean, those are they're 2 beautiful buildings that have been built for that cost. Because I know when they were building them then, you had other counties building high schools for 65, 70 million, easy. I will tell you that I'd be shocked if it's not at least 90, somewhere between 80 and 90. Just with what's going on in the market. And that's still gonna be less than what I think a lot of people are paying now, but I'll be shocked, Trinity High School project's not on here, but I'm gonna mention this. The cleanup at Trinity High School, the RFQ is out.
Things go up.
Been up, posted for, I wanna say at least a week, if not further. You can see it on our webpage. Interested contractors, there's a meeting scheduled for May 22, 11 o'clock to 1 o'clock. And then we will open bids Friday, July 11 or after. Hopefully we can open those on Friday, July 11 to get on with that project. Just give you a heads up, there will be a contract, if I get it, I ran out of time today, but there's a contract, we use an engineering firm to make our plan that got approved. We're gonna bring that engineering firm back in to supervise the project, so there'll be another contract and I'm gonna bring that to you on the consent on Monday night. So I can't remember the name of it. Do you remember the name of it, Marty? That contract, that engineering firm we use?
3 initials.
Yeah, it's something, but just because of where I think the amounts add up, I think if you take the first contract plus what I think the next one will be, I'm gonna bring it to you for approval.
Do we have any idea what that might cost us?
What, the project? I would be shocked if I think it's gonna be $1 million at least.
Will it all be at one phase or broke down or?
I think when we get started, we're gonna get it done.
You
I don't know enough about the whole process, but I do know, that we're gonna bring somebody in to supervise, to make sure that plan is followed, that got approved by the environmental people and the Army Corps of Engineers, okay? So,
And it honestly,
Just makes me sick.
it makes me sick. It just makes me sick
It makes me sick.
that we have to clean up a mess somebody else made, allowed to happen. It makes me sick, and, it's not the school system's fault. And I hope I don't know, we should not, when it's all said and done, or along the way, it's just a shame. I'm not gonna sit here and tell anybody that it's our fault if it comes out my way, I promise you that.
okay, so I wanted to add that, because I didn't add that last night, but I had it on my notes. So I wanted to make sure you guys got that, so y'all know.
Are we
that's-
live streaming?
Yes. Okay, we still on? Okay, I want to jump down to something, just a couple of things. We'll hit a couple miscellaneous things, and then we're going to jump back up to number 6. Attendance to graduation. If you guys will email Beverly and let her know where you're going so she can get out to the principals. I actually just did that last week with the leadership team, so we can get that so principals know.
Can we talk about it? 'Cause it doesn't matter to me, I just like to know where
Well,
everybody's going.
yeah, I've sent emails to Randolph Early College High School and to URA Ridge.
Okay, this one here, Water Ridge, Randolph Early County, Early College.
I've sent,
Friendswood.
I've sent emails to all the principals, but I'm not gonna be here that week.
I'll go to Randaman.
Which one you going to?
I'm not gonna be here at all this
Okay.
week.
I'll go to Randaman.
Okay, Randall was.
I'm not speaking for Shannon, but she's got a daughter graduating, so I'm assuming she'll be at Easter.
Yeah, I think she'll be-
Whether it be parent or on stage, whatever.
I may, since I don't want to be at Providence Grove. Right? We'll see.
I'll do a week more. Trinity.
You do
I
Wheatmore
may go to
Trinity.
Providence
Mr.
Grove.
Cutler? So Mr. Cutler, Wheatmore Trinity?
I can do both.
Yeah,
I mean, they're 6 and 8, aren't
yeah, you can get there whenever I
they?
go,
I've done that.
whenever I
before.
go to both of those. Just like I do Eastern and Providence Grove whenever I go, so. Mr. Cutler, Mr. Cook, what are you doing?
I mean, since no one's going to Providence, right? We go to Providence Grove then.
Tracy, you going to Southwest?
No, I may not do any. It depends on my grandbaby.
Okay.
Or is anybody, well, if at least Southwest, I'll go to, I may go to Southwest. If it's empty. Is it empty?
What
Is
time
it-
Southwest, 7?
Seven.
I think they're due the
Seven.
6th.
Seven.
And URA Ridge,
The email is
6:30.
6:30, I think.
6:30.
I may go to Southwest.
What time's PG?
8. Eastern and Eastern and
6
PG
and
are
8.
6 and 8 like Trinity and Wheatmore. So what are we missing?
That's it, if we can get
That's all.
Southwest in.
Are you going to Southwest, Gary?
I may go to Southwest, yeah.
Who's going to Providence? You're going to miss vacation. You're just right across the street.
That's it.
Exactly.
I mean, I'll go
It's
to
not a
either
written
or, I
vacation.
mean, I could. I'm familiar
Who's
with
going to
South,
Eastern?
Shannon was
Shannon.
Eastern.
I'm familiar with
She won't
Southwest,
go
I
to
know
Providence.
the way it operates.
She might, I think she done that last year.
I know, but with her daughter graduating, I'm
Yeah,
sure
she's
she's
Southwest.
probably gonna have a
Tell
car.
her she don't have a choice, she wasn't
Yeah,
here.
Yeah, I
she,
think
it
she'll
needs
go
to
without
be all
her.
about her daughter's school.
Well, Jake's great, that'd be kinda cool, I mean, I've been here the whole time with, since you bought that little fella in, so I wouldn't mind seeing Jake, to be honest with you, that would be cool.
He graduated before you did.
Yeah, man, I mean, really, I mean, I seen him like, well, smaller than this, and now he's, yeah, and he can throw a fastball a lot, and his dad can't catch it, but.
I hear you. Don't blow up his head. So we got everybody from Providence Grove, right?
And I could flip if needed, I mean.
Yeah.
I hope so.
We'll see if Dennis, we'll just tell Dennis he don't have anybody and he'll be fine. All right, one of the things out there, there's a lot, there's a lot of discussion out there
Yeah, I know.
I want to just note this. Appreciate y'all's response the other week on the retesting. Principal's been sending stuff out. We had to do that because the early college was going to have exams before we got to the May 19 meeting to get it officially approved. But for anybody listening, the retesting, if parents don't agree for their child to be retested on those state tests, we can't do it. So I know there's this confusion out there about why are we doing it? Well, if you don't want us to do it, then don't, we think it can help kids. I've dealt with that back, we used to have the gateways with the retesting. So anyways, just make that note on the retesting, and parents that are listening, if anybody is, there'll be more coming out. But it's the parents' call whether their kid's retested or not. So, Jamie, that's where we are on that. And we can't pick and choose. So there's a bunch of different tests that we do retesting. We can't go in and pick which ones we want to do retesting on and which ones we don't want to do retesting on. That's what the state has said. And if we're going to do the retest plan, which other people are doing as well, then, I'm going to assume they are because it's available to everybody, then we have to be willing to do it in all those areas, provided the parent gives us consent to do that. One other thing is we were talking about displacement again, and then we're going to get into the building plan. At this point, you know, one of the things people may kind of, they may have a different opinion, but remember, we're dealing with, recurring money is the key with our budget. So, you know, I did do a look today, about $7.8 million in general fund balance. And, by my numbers, to be compliant with the LGC, we have to have, you know, just shy of 3,000, but we've got to be very careful with fund balance, because we've got some things coming that we're going to have to use that for to.
3 million.
Huh?
3 million.
Somewhere, yeah, 3 million.
You said
3,000.
3,000.
Oh, 3 million, yeah,
We
3
got
million.
plenty of money to use.
Yeah, but remember, we could, so, yeah, that's a good catch. That would've been 3,000 would've been good. All right, now, one other thing I want to get into, I'm gonna go on 6. I want to go down to number C first, or letter C first. So Sheena, help me pull
It's
that.
in the crime down the bottom.
I want to just pull this up. We've had a lot of conversation about, and I got a winner here, so if I've missed something here, I want to just show you what we have. There's been a question about kids from Farmer that have been allowed to go to Southmont. So here's the real picture. This current year, there's 20 kids that would be at Farmer. They've been allowed to go to Southmont, but 11 of them are employees' kids. Here's the reasons. Child care, so 16 of the 20 are child care and employee. And remember, our rules are, you can take your child to the feeder pattern in which you work. So, extremely unusual, you see there's not many of those, these are all the years back. And siblings, this means their siblings, they already had, 2 of them already had siblings there. Or in that feeder pattern. So then you say, now all of this right here is inside of these numbers. So we say this year there was only 3 new kids. So that's inside of that 20. And you can see 3 new ones went from Farmer to Southmont. Okay? Scroll this. So I don't see a big, I've read some stuff. You know, yeah, it'd be nice if the 20 stayed at Farmer. Same token is, you gotta be real careful because we give our employees, that's a perk.
That's a perk.
So then you go down to Tabernacle students into Southmont. This year we have 4 that should have been at Tabernacle to Southmont, 2 of which are employees' kids. One's extreme and unusual situation, and one is because of a sibling situation. Because we let you go with siblings. Now, of the 4, 3 are new this year to Southmont, and one of those 3 is an employee's child. So, you know, this isn't about anybody being right or wrong. But we work really hard at student assignment. And as y'all know, because you hear it, I hear it, student assignment issues right now, to be quite frank with you, got people trying to jump to do things, which that part of some of the communication we've had is correct. But we have people also trying to be released to go to neighboring school systems, or neighboring school system. And, you know, we don't understand sometimes our child care, when they say child care. One way to stop some of it could be particularly, you could, and we've already done all this stuff for this year, basically what we'll work through the rest of the summer. But maybe we need next year to look at it. Do we consider child care as a reason for 6-8 anymore? We have child care. You can't say child care is your reason if you're in grade 9 and up. And I can't tell you how much time we spend talking through that child care doesn't apply. I mean, all these reasons, when we tell somebody no, we spend time talking through them. And obviously you
Well,
guys-
6-8 doesn't require childcare, do they?
Well, that's in our rules. We allow them to use that as a reason for 6-8.
Oh.
So that may be something that we look at in the fall for 26. 26, 27. Because we do this, this cranks up too, this cranks up pretty early. It winter notifies one group of people who've been on a reassignment, which is, used to be the word transfer, we use reassignment. She notifies one group February 1 and one group March 1, and March 1's for admissions and releases, because you have to re-up those every year. It's just not a carryover. And we try to be good to people to say, the deadline's coming, you need to give us what you're doing, because otherwise,
When is the deadline?
So release deadline's passed. Reassignment in-house deadline is March the 15th. Admissions from outside in is August the 1st.
admissions in though.
Admissions
So-
in, releases deadline actually ended March the 31st. Those run February to March.
And
So if I had a kid wanting to get from this school, wanting to go to this school, I have to put it in by when?
Domicile in Randolph County, staying
Yeah.
in Randolph County, it has to be in by May the 15th.
By,
That's the
I thought
reassignment.
before then.
That's the reassignment. The,
Right.
but the release out of here is March 31. Like I want to go to, I live here and I want to go to Guilford County. Well, we've got to have your release.
No, I was talking about Lane County.
Yeah, inside the county.
Wonder how many kids go to URA charter from Farmer? Any,
A bunch.
I bet there's a bunch, so would that affect probably what,
You already
75?
charter affects Farmer, Tabernacle, Southwest, probably more than they do anybody.
So here's another piece of the data. Okay, this is URI Ridge. So, number that should be at URI Ridge that are reassigned, like right here, this year's 36 have been reassigned, but and 30 of them were reassigned Southwest Middle. 6 of them went somewhere else. But where's the deal? Don't we have another chart there?
No, that's right, because you have to look at the other chart. Out of that 36, the 30 that went to Southwest Middle, 4 of them were in the 5th grade at Farmer. The other 26 would have been at Southwest Middle anyway, because they were already in another, like, at another school that fed to Southwest Middle. So they
Yeah.
weren't in the feeder pattern to go to URA Ridge at that point anyway, if that makes any sense. So really, you could say 4 of them are new, because they were in 5th grade
Yeah.
at Farmer, and should have went on to URA Ridge, but ended up at Southwest Middle.
That's what we've been getting hit with in emails, that we're not making kids that are coming out of Farmer go on into URI Ridge. But really, of all these kids, you break this down, you break all this down, only 4 of the kids that finished 5th grade in Farmer are in this picture going to South.
Does Southmont go to Southwest?
Yeah. Farmer and Tabernacle go to,
URA Ridge.
Go to URA.
yeah. But there's the thing we saw in the email.
But, I mean, that's where you look at it, I mean, you can tell by the numbers, I mean, the numbers that you already following, but you look at the numbers
Look at those.
look at the numbers, yeah, the feeders, Farmer and Tabernacle, their numbers have been falling over the years too. And that's why you are getting smaller and smaller. Your feeder patterns, what's killing you are.
Yep. And you're looking right now at Tabernacle, which is only 60, I mentioned a minute ago, or earlier tonight, Tabernacle's only 64% full. So there we've got Tabernacle at 64% full at the end of the 3rd quarter. And we now have Farmer at 45% full, and that's gonna, there's your issue with the enrollment issue.
That's the reason it's just hard for URA to grow with that going.
And we need some,
Southwest Middle, pretty, what percentage are they? They're pretty full.
Southwest Middle is
They're not that full either.
69% full.
Wow.
See all the schools around there are long full.
I mean,
So a long time ago, a mistake was made down that way. You built too many schools. I
So-
guess they thought the growth would come.
So that's what we have on that data.
Charter didn't help.
It doesn't look like, and when we got those, some of the emails, You know, didn't know what we were gonna find, but we do have, yes, we have 36 kids coming out of UR Ridge, or coming out of that, or supposed to be UR Ridge or assigned elsewhere, 30 of which go to Southwest Middle. So,
So, I mean, you look at that chart up there, and then somebody's watching this, it's gonna blow their mind, because you got that 36 as being reassigned instead of saying, you know, they're gonna think, well, they're being reassigned, not
You almost need-
knowing they're being reassigned, that 30 is being reassigned from the elementary school to the,
Previous elementary school.
To
You just
their
need
middle
another
school.
chart, or another column.
yeah,
These came from,
these were in the southwest feeder pattern to start with.
yeah. That's the kicker right there, they're already in the Southwest.
Yeah, but if somebody looks at that chart, they ain't gonna see that. They gonna see, they're reassigned where they reassigned to. They're not gonna notice that they were in that feeder pattern already.
Yeah. So we have a student number issue up there, period.
The whole area.
I mean, it's the area.
Yes, the
Like we've
area.
been saying here, saying charter schools. I mean,
Well,
I'd like to know how many from Tabernacle and Farmer
Area in
is
that
going
area
to
is
charter school.
popular for-
we've got what, 1,400 kids from the county at URA charter.
1306 is the last time.
I wonder how many of that 1,300 came from the former Tabernacle area.
Yeah.
Because I'm gonna say probably half of that.
Didn't
probably
you have
in
that,
elementary.
Donna? Didn't you give us those numbers? Didn't you give us those numbers?
Years ago, because I went.
I thought you gave it to us not long ago, and we could see like what kids were there. Like if they left URI, I mean, they left the charter and they went back to their school in their area. I thought you just gave us that, did you not?
I bet you that southwest area probably accounts for over half of our students.
Oh, yeah,
Elementary,
the
'cause they-
hardest, when that charter
Oh, I
opened,
know what I was looking at. I was looking at
was
the
it
virtual.
Southwest and Eastern or Southwest and Rounders?
Yeah, that's right.
To the high school.
That's what she gave us, the virtuals.
I think it was Eastern.
But before the charter school opened, there was conversation on this board about building another high school down around Seagrove.
Oh, yeah, it was.
Yeah.
And so when that opened, that pulled enough kids away that ended that discussion. So that's how many kids you.
I mean, you just looking at different things, because I know there's several kids who should be going to UR, he's gonna ask for a hybrid academy. Ask for a hybrid academy, you know, they're doing K-12, they're sitting at over 425 kids there. I mean, I know several kids who should be going to UR, going there.
So that's, just wanted you to see that, just,
Couple days a week, homeschool couple.
what we have on the books with, this scenario with Farmer Tabernacle, South Lawn, and then your Ridge, assigned kids to Southwest Middle. And again, that's very telltale right there, that column. How many kids finished 5th grade in Farmer? Very few, which tells you, the kids were already out of there before we got to the middle school level. Same thing with Tabernacle. I mean, you're looking at how many, 4 kids total out of the 5th grade Tabernacle, and some of that's way on back now, so.
Do you know how many kids out in the middle schools that you already going to Southwest?
Going from 8th grade to 9th grade. I don't have that because they're innately assigned to Southwest because it's an application process to stay at URI. So we'd have to do some digging with that, so it wouldn't be in my database because they're not asking me to go.
How many students are in 912?
At UR Ridge?
About 115?
411. In 912 where?
And URA Ridge.
UR Ridge, 164. Last time I looked. and
How many?
Last time I looked, it was 164 in grades 912 and 247 in grades 6-8.
It's just dropped off some more, hasn't it, the 6-8 that it
Well, it
was a
was-
couple of years ago.
It got them up to
3.
500, I think we crossed 500, I remember 505 is in my mind. But December of 20, it was 488 kids, and December of 24 was 411 kids. So, total. Mr. Cutler, total was 411 in December. And 164 were high school and 247 were middle school.
So we're looking at about 40 kids per grade level in high school, on average.
And we're not, so another piece you have is, I think ninth grade, when you start looking at who was in eighth grade at UR Ridge and stayed, it was 16 kids, 16 that weren't in ninth grade, or eighth grade, and came there in ninth grade. And two
16 from other parts of the county.
They didn't do ninth grade, we didn't do eighth grade there. And 2 in 10th grade.
So basically half your freshmen,
No, 18.
third of your freshman class possibly could be.
Yeah, 8, oh yeah, if you do that, you say, you divide it up. Yeah.
Come from someone else in the
So how
county.
many kids?
Yeah, I got what you're getting.
Well, you got an average, I mean, just on averages, you got about 40 per grade level, and if 16 or 18 came from different areas that did not come through eighth grade at UR Ridge,
So you say
then half your freshman class basically is from somewhere else anyway.
Is that last year that many come
But
from
they
somewhere
may not,
else?
they may have gone, who knows, they may have gone to Southwest and then come back.
Right.
It's just they didn't finish eighth grade at UR Ridge.
Have you had any reports on like the new program coming, if that's,
The seats we have are, last I looked, I don't know if y'all remember, there was, RCC allotted X number of seats that they were gonna reserve for our kids, and last I looked, one of them was 7 seats, one of the programs, we filled all up. Do you remember, I can't remember off the top of my head how many for plumbing, and then there was collision repair and photography, but they had people filling those seats up. I just hadn't asked David in a while, but one of them was filled several months ago, pretty all the way, the seats that your RCC had reserved for us in those programs.
so there's a chance that could pick up the numbers a little. Awesome.
Depends on if his kids are already
If
there.
his kid's already there, that's why I was wondering how many kids outside the UR feeder pattern goes to UR.
Last year, they ended their eighth grade class with 98. This year, their freshman class is sitting at 56 in April. So I don't know how many of those were a part of that 98.
So 42 went
But
somewhere.
about half of them
Went on to
stayed,
Southwest.
42 went on somewhere else.
42 went somewhere. I mean, but that's why I was just wondering how many kids who's going to the high school over there is outside the feeder pattern. Just go back what you were saying, open enrollment. Has open enrollment really did anything for UR Ridge? I don't think so.
I think the problem is the problem we can't afford, which is, we only do transportation if you live in that zone.
Right. And that's gonna be a problem. That's why you ain't gonna get.
Unlike the early college.
Well, the whole problem with UR Ridge is we're trying to sell it like the early college high school. You have no sports for high school, and at both places. But you have the luxury of coming out here and eating lunch with adults, or going there and eating with your friends. And, I mean, it's a location.
Oh, well, you'd be surprised how many kids out there in the high school, I mean, they spend most of their time over here. I mean, I know a
But I
bunch of
mean,
them,
yeah.
they ain't on the campus 2 hours a day. And,
I think that's the biggest downfall is that school's trying to be run similar to the early college high school without the facilities of the early college high school. And it's gonna be tough to ever sell that to somebody unless they live in
I
that.
know, you know, this is my opinion, and Mr. Cullors touched on it before. We went this way with the high school. We might wanna look and ponder to go this way with the elementary. You might wanna look at going K-8 instead of 6-12. Yeah, you'd be shutting a building down somewhere. But feasibly and financially, which way are you gonna be better off? Don't you sort of agree with that, Todd?
That's what I was saying, that study could come back and put you right in, recommend something like that.
Yeah, that's just.
That's exactly what it may come out and tell you.
On that study.
I mean, I think years ago when I went to school, I think the K-8 worked fine.
Oh, yeah.
And
Look how you turned it.
that's it, look how I turned out redneck, man.
Well,
But,
it brings stability to that school.
I mean,
More than
'cause-
anything.
yeah, it does, I mean, 'cause you go K-8, you ain't gonna have the opportunity to go somewhere, so it puts the stability there. And, you know,
Tracy, when you said, most of them aren't in school, were you talking about the high school?
Yeah,
Okay.
because, I mean, a lot of the kids I know over there, they spend a lot of time at.
Well, you know, I know that this is not something we want to talk about tonight, but I'm gonna tell you, and I know it's not something that can easily be solved, but that is a huge problem across our entire, probably across the entire state, as far as that we have a lot of high school students that are not in the building. There's, it's kind of a systemic problem, because I'm gonna be blunt here, I got a good student who is taking some classes online, they're taking classes at the community college. When it comes, and usually it's the better student that's doing that, they're in class, they're in school, in the actual building, one class out of the whole day. And if you have a school where a lot of the good, better role model students aren't there, causes, there's more discipline problems and things like that. I don't know how to do it, I know we're not gonna get to it now, but I'm just telling you, that's a problem that, and I know it's just kind of the way we've been, but it is a problem that we've got.
I mean,
Students that are juniors and seniors that are not in the class, in the building over a majority of the day, because it comes down, I mean, there's so many problems. There's academic problems, there's problems where kids are in school and they don't even know the other students that are in their grade, because they haven't seen them for their hardly at all their junior and senior year. And it's a, and I'm just to be blunt, sometimes it's the better students that are doing that. And now we got a classroom full of things, and I would hate to, things, it's just the things, you know what I'm saying? But they've got maybe a little more disruptive students, and that's even tougher for the teachers, so.
I mean, that's
a problem across the,
That's
probably
where,
across the whole
as
state.
education altogether, because we promote all these programs for our kids, because we, you know, our kids in the school system, we want to see them do better, we want to get them a higher grade education, and that's just the way the systems win.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, RCC sitting over here, #1 community college in the state.
Yeah.
I think what's helped promote that is our kids going there. Because, I mean, till we started doing these programs over the last several years, RCC was not nowhere near #1 community college in the state. And I think, you know, our kids have helped promote them to where they're at.
And going back to what Fred said, I know in a situation, a kid was in school, their school, 10 hours a week.
Yeah, I mean, I know some good students this past year that one class a day is all they were in the building, and I'll tell you, it also causes leadership problems, because that kid's learning, he's not in a classroom with any of his co-workers, whatever, the other students, you know, and he's just, there's no, he doesn't learn leadership, you know, he doesn't eat lunch with them, he doesn't do this, I mean, it's just, you know, I'm in one little class, and it's, anyway, I know that's not what we're talking about, not wrong, we don't get into it, but that is a problem across, probably, I assume across the whole state. I assume it's not just Red Oak County school systems.
And the flip side of that is, we do gain by them going, because we might not be able to find all the instructors with where we are in a certain situation. School systems, to this point, I mean, so it kind of works both ways, because to your point, Mr. Bowles, I forgot what percentage of their enrollment over there was our kids, but it was pretty high last time I looked.
So at the end of the day, it's about.
We're helping them,
kids.
but they're also, I won't say they're not helping us.
Yeah, I mean, they're helping our kids, with a higher education.
Well,
I mean,
and even the scheduling, we may not be able to find, but I can get your point too. Our buildings are not used near as much as I would like to see them used, but that's just the dynamic that's developed over time.
My concern is more, I really don't think we're developing, I'm talking about as a statewide system, I just don't think we're developing
You don't have that
students,
camaraderie and
because of,
community.
we're not developing as far as leadership, and we're not developing just interacting with some. I mean, you know, some of them go home and they take a class basically online, or they go to, you know, maybe to a community college or something like that, I don't know. So.
One thing I do also want to mention too, we know we're talking about, could you make a K-8? If you look at Farmer and you look at Uwari, that'd be real careful, because the capacity for water is 660, and it's my understanding the water system and sewer system out there, we cannot bring in mobile units on that campus. It's what the building will hold, is all we can do there. So just looking at Farmer and Uwari, we're close to 660, looking at Tabernacle and Uwari, it's close to 662. So just know that's something we have to look at if the conversation develop further. And to y'all's point, if that conversation developed further with one of those two schools, then you're looking at, well, does that mean a couple more addresses go to Southmont to keep, does that, you'd have to give yourself some room there as well, so I don't know.
What year was Tabernacle refurbished, or,
I don't know. Oh, I got it.
and also URA Ridge, when was URA Ridge built?
2002, wasn't it?
2002. I'm just thinking in terms of how old the buildings are versus.
Tabernacle was redone in 1996, it looks like. When it was redone,
When was it originally built, though?
1955.
Yeah.
1955.
Around 1996, they done a lot of elementary schools were hit and redone around that time.
Yeah. You got Trindale Elementary was redone. You have, what'd you say, Marty, Coleridge?
Coleridge should have been about the same time.
Coleridge was 1980.
Same
Coleridge,
time as the Tabernacle refurbished.
I knew they hit several.
oh, originally Bureau built, because did they tear? Yeah, Coleridge,
1955.
Yeah, they tore Coleridge,
they tear it down?
It was completely torn down.
Okay, all right, so that's 1996, okay. I was looking at the wrong road. And you said Tabernacle, Mr. Cutler, 1996?
1955 additions, 1996.
Yeah. And Trindale was renovated in 99. And
Came into existence.
Archdale was renovated somewhere back in.
Archdale was renovated 2002, but I'm showing. We have some old buildings from years ago that have been renovated, but their original year of building is pretty old.
32, Travis's first kindergarten class was
92.
Yeah.
All right, anything else on that before we move to the last two items? I'm just gonna open the floor, because
I mean, we might.
I'll say this to you. The building plan for the school system, I don't know what kind of money we have. I don't know what kind of money we can have to be, I've heard we can build, I've heard through Randleman High School, build Randleman High School, but then if we build Randleman High School, how long is it before we can do anything else? I don't know other than, I think we can put a timeline together, maybe, I'll leave that to your thoughts.
Well, I mean,
What comes first?
to our county commissioners gives a clear view of what they will let us do.
I mean, I don't even feel comfortable talking about building a new building with them. I mean, we get the land, but our meetings with the commissioners, I don't even feel comfortable talking about building a school.
I mean, they already told you they're gonna let you build one school, then it's gonna be another 15 years down the road.
Yeah.
I ran into one the other day.
Can't
And he's
understand
like, what are you
where
gonna
they're
do? He asked me, what are we gonna do? And I was like, well, what are y'all gonna allow us to do?
That's the point
Because
we're
y'all
trying
kinda
to
hold
find
the
out.
purse strings there. But, I mean, I think as a board, we need to decide if we're gonna do, let's go into it with an amount. And this is what we're gonna do with it. And then we'll determine the bond type, I guess, from that.
We don't have to do that.
And,
We
go
don't have
from
to do
there.
the bond type, they do that. But, you know what, I mean, I'll be honest with you, I think like a lot of us, I was very disappointed in our meeting, that night. I don't mind saying it in public, cause I've said it to other people already anyway, but, what we were told before we left, in a very blunt manner, was, give us a number. Well, by God, I'll tell them $250 million. And then, I mean, 90 million for the high school, this much for middle school, this much for schools, $250 million. They ask for a number, there's a number. Let them figure out
I
what they're
think
gonna
that's
do
what
with
we
it from
need to
there.
do. We need to come back
We need
with
to
them.
sit down with the
Yeah.
number and give it to them, then say, they
This
said
is what we
no.
wanna do.
Yeah.
And then y'all decide,
And then figure out what we can do with that amount.
I think if you think realistically, I think you need to, I still think in that number, you need to think about Eastern Randolph.
Well, we've
Sure,
got,
yes.
we've got,
Original,
Yes.
and maybe looking that way, and maybe, you know, definitely you can think of one school, but, I mean, you know, and look down the road, I think you're gonna have some time on
well,
Liberty.
this is where I'm personally at. I think we've got to do something with Randall,
I agree with that.
okay? But we've also got to do something with Trinity, Southwest, Eastern, and whatever, I guess that's all. it is.
Yeah, I wouldn't
Traditional
do a whole
high
lot at Trinity, because I think down the road, a few years, you're gonna be faced with.
schools.
You're gonna have
Well, the only
You're gonna have to have
benefit to
school.
Trinity versus Southwest and Eastern, Trinity does have 2 gyms they can use,
Yeah, they can use that.
which is on
so.
campus.
And you know,
Southwest doesn't.
Shannon's not here, but she brought up a good point in the conversation to me. And do you have to have, when you talk about the price of the gym, that she mentioned, you know, do you have to have the most elaborate gym as your, I mean, can you?
I think these
get
people are
by
asking
with
some,
with the
basically
metal
for
or-
a practice facility versus
Yeah, like
a,
something less costly, like a metal building or something. Do you have to have the brick and mortar? I mean, I don't know.
Well, you want.
what does the state
You want it to
require?
look good and stay.
Nice.
Does the state require? I mean,
I just think you give them a huge number, let them decide, and then we'll, I mean, and if they say, we're not
Yeah,
gonna
because
give
they keep
$30
saying
million
that.
to Eastern Randolph, Southwest Randolph, and Randall, so let the board, that's what they get paid to do, let the county commissioners, so whenever anybody complains, well, we built the metal building at Eastern Randolph when we could have built a brick, say, well, that's what we got from county commissioners. I mean, I'm not putting it, I'm
the
not
reason I asked that.
complaining about county commissioners, I'm just saying, that's their job. You know, it's our job, what they said to us, they said, what do we need? What do you need, give us a number. And we don't need to, we need to give them the
Well,
number.
that's the reason I asked, because like when they built the charter school down here,
Mhm.
they built it for pennies on the dollar compared to what we can build a school for. And that's why I was asking if the state mandates it being brick and mortar, or could you go in there and build a concrete structure? I mean, that gym's concrete with stucco siding. Well, theirs may actually be even metal
Yeah.
on the outside.
And we could have problems like we do
Understand.
at Roy Ridge with the roof and things like that, you know, so
Right.
I think we don't build an inferior building. It may be 5 and 10 years from now, the charter system's gonna be out there begging the county commissioners to fix something.
No,
you
it won't
know.
be long.
And again, you know, I know it'll get done, and then, you know, we may be the ones that are kind of sliding for it, but, I don't think we've done anything. And I know this, that Trinity Middle School, there's not even close to being a middle school built like that around in this area. And, you know, the charter school, middle school, I'm sorry, it does not compare as far as a facility. Nothing Nashville City compares to that as far as a facility. And, so I just think you don't build anything halfway.
No, I don't.
I do think when they built the charter
I don't
school, they
either.
weren't looking at 30 years down the road.
Right, yeah.
And we have to look at
And
I
we
mean,
have-
I agree with Fred, we're gonna have to sit down and really have a discussion
And come up with some
on what,
numbers.
you know, the number is. I mean, we can sit here all night and say blah, 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 and a lot of times we chase a lot of rabbits. But we gotta sit down and we really gotta have that discussion. All right, we're gonna build around it. All right, what we gonna do at traditional? What kind of number can we agree with? We gonna
Well, by
sort
summer,
of-
we'll know
sort
about the
of-
land and all. and we
sort
can
of
sit down
set
and
on
do
the
it, maybe.
traditional, all right? Then you go to traditional schools, if you had,
9 million.
if you had this much money to spend, what would the people in the community want? What would the students want? What would the staff want? You know, if you can't give them the $20 million, what do you want for that $20 million?
That's right, yes.
Then when they come back and say, well, Trinity got a new track at Southwest, but y'all didn't
That's what
want,
they
y'all
wanted.
didn't want a
That's
track,
right.
y'all
That's
wanted
what
a
they
new tennis court.
Any number you give them, they'll have to come back with a bond, watch and see. It's,
Probably so, but,
In a bond,
yeah.
I'd be scared to touch a bond.
Well, you know, it's.
Ain't gonna pass.
I don't care what Darrell said in 1964 when they passed one, 64, yeah, that was freaking 80 years ago, you know. It's a different time, a different place.
Well, we know we got 2 things, that's the land at Liberty and Randleman. I think we just sit tight and wait for that study. I
Yeah,
just really do.
I mean,
Yeah, well, we've got to wait for the study.
We've got to
before we
wait
make
for
any
that
decision,
before we can
for sure.
decide about anything else and how to proceed. Because what that study's gonna also tell us is how efficient can we use our buildings.
That's
I mean,
it.
if we're gonna have to do something different there, then we'll know where we need to put the money and what locations. Because I'm gonna tell you, the Trinity is gonna be the next thing we have to do as far as land. I mean, that'll be right behind these two to me. But we'll have to see what that study says.
And we're looking, what, midsummer maybe before we get
Yeah, I
that?
would be surprised, probably in the summer when they're done, but I would be surprised if we don't have to extend it a little bit with them so they can do some presentations to y'all.
I mean-
Because they, you know, this is not critical at all, but the first time they put it out there and or staff is involved put it out there, it may take a while for us to get it massaged to where it makes sense to everybody. Because, I mean, they're dealing with what's called population nodes, they're dealing with where they can project houses are gonna come up at. And then they have to have a factor that rates in there about what's a house like this. You know, you still have the estimation, or not guesstimation, but estimation of how many school-age kids are, and this is based on
Right.
all these studies and trends,
Yes.
they've got all this data collected from all these years. It wouldn't surprise me if we're gonna get compared to 7 or 8 other very rural communities, whether it be in North Carolina or other places, that they've seen the same thing. You know, it wouldn't surprise me where the comparison points are, but I can tell you, they've been in this a long
We
time.
talk about lower enrollment, especially in elementary schools. But you look and you read out there, because you look at nationwide, the younger generation, I'm talking 20 to 30 years old, and you read about it. These people ain't having kids like they used to. They're not. I mean, you ain't gonna see many households with 4 kids in them.
No.
If you lucky, you see 1 kid in a household with 25 or 30-year-olds. I mean, you know, this new generation ain't all about having kids. I mean, you got kids now, they ain't driving till they're 18 or 19 years old. I mean, it's a different time, man.
And I'll tell
By
you
the same
something.
token, I saw a presentation about 2 years ago, and jobs need to be filled here, and the workforce number is right here.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
you look, I mean, the population is switching. The population is getting older and the younger generation's getting
Oh, yeah.
smaller.
I'll tell you something else we're against, or we're up against, Raleigh. They're all against the public schools now. That's what you're fighting. Let's get the public schools, we're all into the voucher, all into charter, all into everything but the public schools. And the public schools has to take, they have to take the rest. The kids, they can't pick and choose or have an option. They've gotta go somewhere, and, that's tough on us as a system. And as far as the commissioners, I wanna say this on the record, if anyone's listening. The meetings that you and I went to, you were there. That's when the sun was shining bright. Toyota, it was bright. And, they thought, I think everything was coming from Toyota, like that God's raining, gold on us. Well, I think they've all found out that maybe the gold's dried up. It's not gonna happen like they thought.
It wasn't solid, it was that good.
You're daggone right. Maybe some fool's gold in that, and, I think, that's playing into a lot of their backing up too, because I don't think their funding's gonna come quite like they thought it to.
Well, when I was saying that about I didn't make it sound like I was throwing the commissioners under the bus, because I know, they were in that situation like, we were expecting this kind of revenue, and
Yeah,
Daryl even
it's
said,
not
we
happening
haven't
like
seen
they
that
thought.
revenue, haven't seen any of that yet, so I understand they're in a difficult situation. I will say, as far as, even if we did, where we got some kind of funding for different things, say, okay, what we're gonna do with one school versus the other, I would say we need to guard against putting it out there too much to let a school kind of decide, we're doing a track here or this here, because you're gonna end up with, the one that screams the
careful
loudest,
with
and it
that.
could be, it's just, we need to make that decision, as a school system, not, I know people get mad to say this, but rather than that community, because it's gonna be just a few people that are screaming the loudest in that community are gonna be the ones that, I love tennis courts and everything, love athletes as much as anybody, but it comes down to spending that kind of money for a couple dozen
Yeah,
students,
I mean,
it's
you ask-
hard, that's hard to make
You
that
may
decision.
ask most
I
communities
know
where they
that
want
make
to
people
spend
mad,
money, it'd be on a
but,
baseball, softball,
yeah.
or football field, and track and tennis, and, 'cause you got
Well,
so
be-
fewer kids participating.
Yeah.
Being the study's gonna be out to the end of the summer or first of next school year, do we want to pursue as a board asking for a smaller amount of money to do some of these little projects?
No, I think we should
Wait.
be,
I think you just go there with, you have all your i's
Yep.
dotted and your
I think
t's
so
crossed.
too.
And
Just
say, hey, this
put
is
it out
what we
there.
need.
250.
Got your land.
This is what we need, and give
Got our
us a
land.
timeline.
Cause if you give them a smaller amount, they gonna say, well, I gave you.
Oakley
this."
comes in at 250, say, well, he knew, he didn't have to pay me $27,000.
That may be 2 years down the road.
Oh.
Yeah. But the thing is, you know, we got right now, we know we got the land for those two places that are in the process. And if we get that study, it won't cost us any money to start addressing the Yari Ridge. I mean, we should be able to say, hey, we're going in this direction too. And then we look at where the, what the survey tells us of where the students are going to be. And that's good, that should be our driving decision of where the money needs to go.
I agree with that. I think we just need to
Gotta
kind of
look to
sit
the
back.
future.
We
We've
do,
gotta look
we
to the
just-
future.
There's a lot of things I'd like to see done at Southwest and Eastern, and Randall would get a new high school, but we need to really wait and see exactly what we're up against.
I mean,
I don't have an issue with that, but in the same boat, these traditional high schools have been waiting 10, 15 years now, which, I mean, what's another two when you're looking at 10 or
That's right.
15?
I mean,
But-
be honest with you, yeah, they've been waiting, and it's not been a word, very few words even said about it. And I've been sitting here for 12, 14 years now. In my 12, 14 years, and that was promised before my time, and it is very few words even said about that, because the people who sat on this board didn't even know that was promised. Gary, the only one, because Gary was here then, and not putting you on the spot, Gary, but the people who've been on this board since didn't know that, didn't really know that, so.
But we would have an idea by the end of this year,
Yeah,
if we
I
can
mean-
do something
yeah,
for
yeah.
Southwest
Yeah.
and Eastern, we should know that.
Yeah.
I
These
mean,
things,
But-
That- those numbers.
But that's a
I
good
just
point
say
you
don't
made a
jump
while
the
ago
gun
too,
too quick.
about like numbers.
Yeah.
I mean, you gotta realistically, you
and
don't put a swimming pool in. just-
No, I mean, and I know there's like, Eastern Alpha wants tennis courts and everything, and that's great, I mean, it come down to it.
hey,
We'll worry about that when it happens.
Looks like-
I just have a hard time spending that much money for a couple dozen students, and I know, it's not fair, so, well, there's a lot of things that will impact 300 and 400 students at that school, for the same money, tennis courts, and I know that's,
I mean, you could, like Phil was talking earlier, this growth up that way is slow. I mean, I do my budget every year at the fire department, I know what kind of growth there is. My budget grows $10,000 to $20,000 a year maybe. I can give him the numbers, he's a math whiz, he can figure out how much that, relates to county tax money, but it's not, because they projected, well, I'll be honest with you, I'll say it to you, they gave us projection numbers back in February to build our budget off of. And then they said, whoa, I already turned my budget in. And they said, well, you got extension May 8th, because we got new numbers. I lost $3.9 million worth of tax, our whole tax base, because, I mean, you get people in there who appeal their taxes, nonprofits appeal it, get approved, that's zero tax money coming in. Farm deferred, people get farm deferred, it drops it on down. Timber deferred, wildlife deferred, it drops it down. I lost, on my budget, where I was gonna get like $30-some thousand more. I lost almost $5,000 of that.
Tracy, I'm looking right now at your taxes.
You can look at my taxes, but
I should have smacked him, were you there that night?
Oh, yeah. But You know, that's a different, you know, that's a different ballgame. A lot of people do not see.
Who approves the tax, like the fire tax? Who approves the tire? Who approves? There you go.
what.
Technically, they should.
That don't burn me up.
Technically, they should.
They should.
Maybe we need to come up with a 9-year plan on this, like we did the other 9-year plan, like, it worked really well, what we wanna see in the next 9 years.
But I'm just saying, the growth out southwest area is not that big.
So you guys do you guys spray stuff down in Farmer? I know the militia, I ride through there in the fog and all. I mean, to keep people from having babies or something.
You lucky I know you, cause you wouldn't ride through there about one more time.
I mean, it's like a film, you get close to that fire station, I mean, it's like, it's fog, it scares me.
This time of year's chicken here.
You think it's chicken manure.
All right, so I guess we're about there, right? Finished.
So what I'm hearing is, we're gonna set a dollar figure, I think we know what it's gonna be for one vote. But we're gonna really wait until student assignment study's done to see what student assignment study says. Because, I mean, January, we're here, we're May, we don't have any more idea about money for that, so, focus on what we can right now. We have that, we'll finish the land out around the high, close land for, Liberty, we've got it, and then we'll, see what student assignment study says and go from there, so.
Yeah, but you go, you know, something said about bond. I mean, Dr. Gadding talked about, you put that general bond out there and it gets turned down, you can't put that out there again. And the thing is, when you put,
Still sitting where you were.
when you put general bond out there, it's gonna be so much mess tacked on to it. I mean, you're gonna have you're gonna have Randolph County, you're gonna have Ashburn City, and then you're gonna have whatever the other county wants, they gonna throw on that bond.
If it doesn't make it,
I heard that out of his own mouth.
Mhm.
if it doesn't make it, you can't take it out there again.
You're exactly right, that's how it works.
All right, Mr. Cook, that's all I have.
All right. I guess we're done.